Hello, I didn't see you there. If you're like me, you're aware that the first ever video game console was 1972's Magnavox Odyssey, but you've never really taken a look at its games. If you're not like me, different circumstances apply, because people are different. Regardless, this month we're taking a look at the Magnavox Odyssey, and who better to tell us about it than this guy?
Families who are content to let television do its thing often find themselves at its mercy for a choice of entertainment, while people who want television to do their thing entertain themselves with Odyssey, the electronic game of the future. Each Odyssey game uses one of these special game cards, which plug into a slot at the front of the master control unit. The game cards activate lights on your television screen that bounce, float, or extinguish on contact, depending upon the particular game you've chosen to play. For example, to play Odyssey Tennis, you insert game card number 3 into the master unit. Press the special tennis game overlay into position on the television screen, and you're ready to begin an exciting, fast-paced tennis game.
So, as you've just seen, this is video games at the most basic level possible. If it wasn't for the magic of static electricity keeping the overlay stuck to the screen, it'd barely be anything at all. There's no sound, no graphics other than a couple of squares, and it doesn't even remember the scores. Players have to keep track themselves. 2 squares, awkward silence, and no one scores. Sounds like every date you've ever been on. Slam. It's said that the Odyssey's table tennis game inspired Pong. Of course, we're currently looking at tennis. Table tennis was very different. It was the same game, but without the overlay. Genuinely, absolutely shameless. Hockey did have an overlay, but it was literally the same game cartridge as tennis, so the gameplay was identical. One thing you could do with all of these games was use the second dial on the left of the controller to apply swerve to the ball, which is weird as it makes the whole thing virtually unplayable. This swerve is referred to as English in America, although no one seems to be able to conclusively say why, and I've yet to come up with a joke about it that didn't feel incredibly laboured, so if you've got one, please do let me know in the comments. Right, 3 games so far, all of which are the same game, but now for something completely different. Submarine sees one player navigating his ships along a predefined course, while the other tries to shoot them. Cat and Mouse sees one player chasing the other through a maze, avoiding the blue furniture. And Ski, they really didn't overthink the names of these games, allows players to race along one of several trails, either accruing penalty points for diverting from the path, or seeing who can complete a section in the fastest time. A fun enough idea, but of course the Odyssey has no clue if you've done any of that or not. With Ski, players would have to time each other using a clock in their home, and for Cat and Mouse, players would obviously both eventually cheat because the controls are imprecise and the computer doesn't actually know whether you crashed into the furniture or not. Although, at least those games made the effort to pretend they needed a piece of hardware that cost the equivalent of over $600 in today's money. Roulette literally goes to all the trouble of using the on-screen light to replace a roulette ball. It's shuffled by players shutting their eyes, waggling the dials, and hoping the light ends up somewhere near a number. Given the amount of paraphernalia included with the console to make this game work, they might as well have just thrown in a roulette wheel as well. States, meanwhile, is essentially a trivia card game where, to collect the cards for each state, you again blindly waggle the wheels and see where it lands. That's still better than Simon Says, which, rather than having anything to do with the game, where you only do things if Simon tells you to, instead, it's more akin to a version of the far less entertaining game Show Me on the Picture Where They Touched You, albeit by pointing to the area in question with a massive torch. Haunted House is a card game so complicated that even after reading the rules, I still don't understand it. And if you think I'm exaggerating, I've actually got the instructions printed out here from Haunted House, so I'll give you a little taste. While the detective turns his head, the ghost, but that's in real life by the way, not in the game, so they turn around in the room they're playing it in. While the detective turns his head, the ghost positions his light behind any of the clues, except the bat on the 3rd floor, for some unclear reason. The ghost makes himself disappear by manoeuvring the detective's light towards the ghost until it touches and extinguishes the ghost's light. The ghost player then returns the detective's light to the position shown in the illustration, and the ghost now tells the detective to turn around. So, game's not even started yet. The detective then enters the house through the door at the left. The other player gives the detective a clue card for each clue the detective lights on his search for the secret treasure. But The detective must gather his clues in the proper order. Again, see illustration. That's illustration C now. Furthermore, if the detective reveals his whereabouts at a window by lighting it, he must return to his last clue position and give back that clue card to the ghost. When the detective approaches the clue just before the ghost's hiding place, the ghost reveals himself by pressing his reset button and says boo. The manual for this thing is absolutely massive. Even the diagram explaining Pong is utter chaos. There were 2 other games that were included with the Odyssey. Analogic, which involves more manual maths calculations than gameplay, and Football, which had over 70 physical cards, tokens and other paraphernalia, and 6 pages of rules to plough through. Maybe it's an amazing game, but based on everything else I've shown you, by the time I got to Football, I'd lost the desire to find out. Obviously I'm being harsh. This is literally the first time it had been possible for people to control the image on their television screen. In the words of that guy we met earlier,
Odyssey can be many things to your family. Fun, excitement, entertainment, challenge, and education.